Hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you are, and welcome. I am bundled up here because I'm in San Diego and it is weirdly cold and rainy, so unseasonably cold and rainy here. So I am super excited to talk with you all today about go mode versus flow mode. First of all, if you are newer to this group, I'm McKenna Sage, and we're here live in the Mastery of Coaching Facebook group. And today's topic is not specifically coaching related, but it's really about how to grow your business without burning out. And this is something that personally is very near and dear to my heart and something that I struggled with for many, many years. And it's a pattern that followed me not only from, my coaching business, but also from previous, career and business and even as far back as school. So you might, if you're watching this, feel like this is something newer for you, or it might be something you've been struggling with in some capacity for a long time. So I'm curious as you guys join, if you could share in the chat, like, is this kind of burnout cycle, is that something that's newer for you, or is that something that you've struggled with for a long time? If you think about like back to school, maybe you didn't burn out, but were you kind of that go, go, go type of person, or in your earlier careers or in your current career? So just share with me in the chat, like, how long has this been going on for you? And you can even post here in the chat, even if you're watching the replay or watching on another platform. So, to share a little bit of my story and why this topic is so important to me, I was someone that for probably a decade or more would burn the candle at both ends. I was the quintessential overachiever and, worked super hard in high school and everything, and then got to university and it just ramped up even more. I was straight A student, involved on campus, working part-time jobs and barely sleeping, right? A few hours a night, something like that. So I really went all in on school because I wanted to be successful, and I just had this hyped up drive in me. And then fast forward to my first career out of college, and I was similarly just so in this go, 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 go mode. And for a while, it really worked, right? I was successful because of it. But as time went on, I began to have anxiety. I began to feel tired a lot. I would have these cycles where I would just kind of be breaking down because I would have way too much on my plate. And then finally decided, this is not the career for me. Part of the burnout in that first career, it was the fact that I wasn't truly fulfilled. So this is something that you guys can kind of tune into for yourselves is, you know, your fulfillment level does connect sometimes to your level of, what would you say, energy, aliveness. And if you don't have that aliveness, as we call it, then you might feel burned out. So there's a lot of different kinds of sort of burnout or exhaustion. And I often say burnout isn't just physical, it's exhaustion of the soul. It's not just physical exhaustion, it's exhaustion of the soul. And so tune in with yourself right now, or you could share in the chat. I see some of you on live here. Is the burnout that you're experiencing, or is the tendency toward that, does it have anything to do with not being fully fulfilled in your current career or business? If so, type fulfillment in the chat, just so I know who resonates with this and relates to this. So this is a really important one because a lot of times when people come to me and they say, I want to start a new business, and they're still working in a job, they go, I don't know how I'm going to have the energy to do it. And I say, if it's really the right thing, you're going to be surprised because you will have more energy when you start working on this thing that you love, right? I just had a client the other day that I worked with to get her business started. And that's what she said. She said, I was so burned out when I started working with you. And I had no idea how I could even like find the time or the energy to get started in my new business. And what she found was that as she got started and as we started putting these pieces in place, even though she was spending more time technically working, first of all, she got her job done in less hours because she was excited about what she was doing and wanted to free up time to work on her business. And then she had so much more energy to work on her business. So I see a couple of you typing fulfillment in the chat. Yeah. So tell me, what is your, I know we've talked a little bit, ladies, but just tell me again, um, are you full-time in your coaching or your business, or are you still working a day job, just so I know? Um, so so that's one thing, is if you feel unfulfilled, that is going to drain your batteries, so to speak, right? And we're not speaking specifically about go mode yet. We'll get there. But that is one thing. So Paula's full time. I know we've talked, Paula, but I've had a lot of conversations. So can you just remind me, Paula, your business? I think we talked about it in the last live as well. Crystal said she still has a day job. Maggie says working. Do you mean, Maggie, you're still working in a like a day job as well? Um, so yeah, so we're speaking to the fulfillment piece. And if you're not fully fulfilled and you're already full time in your business, then that's something to look at as well. Paula, is like, what would it take? What would you be doing differently if you were really fulfilled? Home health business consultant. Oh yeah, I do remember that. Okay, great. So, and then Maggie, Crystal, Paula, are you all, is your, well, Paula, you just told me your business. Maggie and Crystal, is your business that you're starting, is that coaching? Remind me, even though I know we've probably talked before. So, all right, so going back to my story, because I'll come back around to go mode and flow mode. Burning the candle at both ends of my previous business. And then even when I stepped into coaching, I made huge changes. You guys have heard about this, and I had so much more energy. I was so fulfilled. And so it really did make a difference. I was far less susceptible to those burnout cycles. But I still had a tendency to go there at times. And so I had to really dig deep and go, like, what's going on here? That I'm in work that I love. I've made all these changes, and yet I'm still having these times when I feel so exhausted. And so I looked deeply at that. And what I learned was that I was in this pattern of too much go mode. Okay. Okay. Yes. Maggie and Crystal are both coaching. Perfect. So I was in this pattern of too much go mode. So what is go mode and flow mode? Go mode and flow mode are words that we came up with, actually coined by my mom, my mentor, Gigi, and I, and we came up with these words to describe masculine and feminine in a different way. Because what I found is that I'm someone that has a lot of quote unquote what you might call masculine energy. But when I heard that word, I was like, I don't really identify. Masculine feels like it's gender specific, and I don't really identify as feeling masculine in that sense. But the qualities or the traits that you might attribute to more of the masculinity, I would go there a lot, especially in business. So I'm just going to share a few of those kind of more typical masculine traits, and then some of the more what we might call feminine traits, in case this is a newer conversation for you. So the masculine, or what we consider the masculine, these are two polarizing energies, is more linear and logical. It tends to be more strategic and success driven. It sees things more in black and white, right? Black and white thinking. And it's always going to like solve problems. Have you ever been kind of in go mode, like you're working on your business all day, and then someone comes to you and they're talking about something going on, or maybe you've had this experience sharing with a man, a male person, a man in your life, where you go to them and you're sharing something and they go to solve it, right? They're like, I'm going to solve this for you. And I've noticed myself do the same kind of thing when I'm in go mode, when I've been working all day and everything is like, someone comes to me and I'm like, great, let's solve that. Let's fix it. Right. So, in that's a more kind of, again, masculine, thinking type energy, type pattern. So let's see what else. Very focused, very forceful, practical. So these are all more on the, what I call the go mode side, and some people call the more masculine side. The feminine, on the other hand, is more intuitive. It sees in shades of gray, so it sees in more like um, that things aren't just black and white, and tends to be more collaborative and cooperative. It's really about building relationships, and it can be a little more like feeling, a little more like also distracted, not as focused. But there's really beautiful things and beautiful gifts in both of these. So what happened was when I really started to look at like what is causing this burnout cycle, apart from once I got out of the lack of fulfillment, which was the first one, what else? And I saw it's too much of this kind of what people call masculine energy, but I decided to call go mode because when I heard masculine, I just, again, it didn't fit for me. And so I wanted to take the genders out of it or the gender identification out of it and go, what else kind of identifies these modes? And so Crystal's saying I'm more masculine with my energy. So I'm curious for you all, if you really just kind of tune in on a day-to-day basis, what's your percentage? And again, this has nothing to do with men or women. It's just what's the percentage of the time that you spend in go mode and what's the percentage of the time you spend in flow mode? The more intuitive feeling, right, collaborative, like that sort of energy, versus the linear logical focused like go kind of energy. So just put the percentages. You can say go and then put whatever the percentage is in the chat, and then put flow and put the percentage in the chat. I'd be curious to hear from you all. Paula says 95% go mode. Yeah, so that's a lot, right? And that was probably me at definitely me in university and in my first business. When I made the transition, I would say that shifted a lot. Went down to probably 70%, and then it went down even more from there. But at first, it was still pretty high, right? Crystal says go, she's 75%. Yeah, so Paula, that puts you at 5% flow, right? And Crystal at 25% flow. Who else? Who else wants to share in the chat your percentages? Because it's interesting to identify and really see that number and go, wow, right? So what I say is there are gifts in both, and there's also sort of a shadow or a challenging side to both. And the gifts of go mode are obvious, right? Especially in business, is that's that get shit done energy. It's that go for it and focus and knock things off the list and solve problems and so on. The challenges are, in my experience, are things like burnout, especially for women. I've found, I don't think it's necessarily gender specific, but women especially, because our bodies, genetically, or not genetically, what do you call it? Our bodies over millennia develop physiologically to have more of the feminine or the go or the flow mode energy. And so as we've gone into business, we've made a huge change in running this go mode energy so much. And so I find that it tends to sort of break down health wise some things for women faster than it does for men. It's not to say that it doesn't do that for men, but for women that tends to hit harder. And so you might find things like feeling tired a lot. Hormonal dysregulation is a big one. Running too much cortisol and adrenal burnout can be something. And what else? Anxiety. These are some of the symptoms I experienced, and everyone is different. So I'm curious for you, Paula and Crystal, and anybody else who's watching, what are some of the negative sort of symptoms that you've been experiencing from too much go mode? If you identify as having more go mode than flow, have you experienced any sort of drawbacks to that? And if so, what have those been? Now, I want to just touch on, even though that's not the topic of this video, I want to touch on too much flow mode because this is also quite challenging. If you have too much flow mode, then you are, like I said, you're more in the intuitive, the feeling, but a lot of times, especially for women, again, that's who I mostly work with, is there's like this emotional roller coaster. This can also happen from too much go mode because you can have hormonal dysregulation. But a lot of times with too much flow mode, it's like you go with your emotions all the time, and then it's nothing really, like things don't really get done. So that's the challenge in business, especially of too much flow mode, is like you might feel and see and sense a lot, but nothing's actually like really getting done, or very little is really getting done to move your business forward and get you results. And so that's painful too. If you're an entrepreneur or you're starting a new business, that can be very, very challenging. Um, Crystal says sickness from stress and exhaustion. Yeah, it's no fun, right? So that's what we're talking about today, is how can you sort of not get rid of the go mode, because we need both energies. That's the thing, is I want to take the any sense that there's like good or bad or right or wrong about any of this, because it's not. We need go mode and we need flow mode to be healthy, especially with a feminine physiology. We need a balance or a dance between these two energies. And that's the way I like to think about it. I normally don't use the word balance, because balance is like this. Imagine a set of scales, and it's like, oh no, I'm tipping too far this way. Oh, we got to correct. Oh, I'm tipping too far this way. We've got to correct. But that's stressful in and of itself. And the truth is that you can't balance it. There's going to be times when you need more go mode, times where you're more in flow. And so instead, I like to think of it as a dance. So think about it as sort of like dancing effortlessly between these two energies. And I'm, without even thinking about it, I'm making sort of like a, what do you call it, like an infinity symbol with my hands. That's how I see it, is like dance from this one into this other one. Or if you think about like the yin yang, right? That symbol with the masculine, feminine, and it shows like the swirling kind of shape. So that's what the first thing is. I want you to think about it and not make the go mode wrong. The first tip I really already gave is around fulfillment, is really identifying what is it that is not fulfilling about what you're doing or the way you've been doing things, and what would make it more fulfilling. What is it you really, really want there? Paula said, something inside rebelled and has made me resist completing my work. Consequently, I'm very behind. It's been embarrassing and I've been hard on myself. I'm learning that it's important happening to keep me healthy. Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that, Paula. And it sounds like you're pretty, if you don't mind me saying, pretty far down that sort of burnout spiral. And so that's when that kind of thing starts to happen, is just like, I don't even have the energy to do any of it, right? And in that case, you've got to do what you've got to do to keep your business running, but it may be that you need to do, well, first of all, I would always say with you or with anyone, you really need to see like, what is it you want, right? And that can be scary when you've built a whole business around doing things one way. You feel like, oh my gosh, if I look at a different way of doing things or a different thing I might do, then I'm going to lose everything I've worked so hard for. That was always my fear, right? I'm going to lose everything that I've worked so hard for. But the truth is, when you get clear on that vision of what you really want, and when you see a different way to approach things, then whole worlds can open up and you'll have so much more energy, clarity. So that's where I would begin with you. And then you may find you need to take a little break. I don't know if you took a break over the holidays, but you might need to take a week off or something like that, and really set things up that you can do that. Maybe you can't do it right away, but take a week to 10 days. If you did a week and 2 weekends, that's a long period of time to really like consciously get that reset. So I wouldn't normally say that people need that necessarily, but if you're far enough down that road, then sometimes you do. But more importantly, even, or I would say equally important to that time off, is to have that clear vision that you are moving toward, because that will, and then the support to make it happen, because that is what's going to make the ultimate shift for you if you're not feeling fulfilled right now. So that's just a few things there. And I can't remember, Paula, if we've ever talked about you getting on a call. I don't think we've done a call, right? Like a clarity call, but that might be really good, because for you to really see the vision and get some support around that. So back to go mode and flow mode and it being a dance. So we need to learn to dance between these two energies, because otherwise, like Paula's saying, we polarize so far to the go, and it's just like everything starts breaking down, right? We think we're getting more done, and we are in the short term, but in the long term, it's not worth it. So you need both energies. It's a dance, and don't make either one of them wrong, right? There's going to be seasons and cycles where we need more of the go, and seasons and cycles where we can go more into the flow. So, how to grow your business without burning out? First of all, we talked about, again, fulfillment. That's a big piece, and vision and being clear on where you're going. The next one is to identify what makes you unwind, and what makes you unwind is different for everyone. We call these your nourishers. And I'm curious for you guys to type in the chat what they are for you. And what makes you unwind is different than like what fills you with energy necessarily. It's what really has your body like relax and let go. And for me, this is actually reading fiction books is my number one nourisher. So it's not going to the spa. The spa is great. It's also relaxing for me, but somehow because my brain doesn't disengage completely necessarily, it's not always as relaxing as curling up with a fantasy book for 2 days and just losing myself in it, right? And so that is one of my biggest nourishers. Sometimes people's nourishers are getting massages, but it's about, do you really let go and unwind when you do that? For most people, going to the nail salon, it's self-care, but it's not really a nourisher. They're still on their phones, they're thinking, they're not really unwinding. So what is that for you that has you like fully let go and feel more like your true self and more relaxed, connected? So Crystal says meditation and bubble baths. Great. Yeah. For me, another great one is walking. I really like to go for long walks. As long as I consciously make a choice to not engage my brain in any kind of work or be looking at my phone, I listen to music or I talk to someone. That can be very much a nourisher for me as well. Maggie says my art projects. Beautiful. So it's really important. And Paul, I'm curious what it is for you and anyone else watching. Bicycling, yeah, such a good one. I remember we used to go to Amsterdam. My mom lived there for 6 years, and everything's pretty flat there, and everybody rides bicycles. So we'd get bicycles and ride all through the city, and that was so. I have to say that's probably in the right environment, probably one of mine as well. So when you see what it is that makes you unwind, then you want to make a conscious effort to be doing those things on a regular basis, especially if you are going forward in business. You need those times when you unwind, right? Not every minute of your day needs to be productive. In the evenings, on the weekends, whenever you take that time for yourself, then you want to be doing those things that nourish you and that get you back to, because what that does is it brings you back to a more feminine place, a more flow mode place. And that's why my mentor Gigi has the quote, when women deeply relax, we become wise. And a new kind of, that's really her quote, is when women deeply relax, we become wise. And what does she mean by that? It's that a new kind of seeing opens up for us when we get out of that go mode and switch into flow. And that is how I ultimately was able to get the clarity about what I wanted to do when I left my previous career and shifted into coaching. Was my mentor led me through an experience that had me go into flow and had me get disengaged from the problem solver that was trying to figure it out and could not get clear, because from that kind of thinking I couldn't see the answer. But when I got into the flow and I totally just let go, I wasn't even trying to find it. And then she asked me certain questions. It came like that. And it was so clear, crystal clear. So if any of you are looking to get clarity around anything, that's why I do the clarity calls, is to help you have a small experience of something similar, right? Of unclicking from the thinking brain and going more into the flow. And then we need the go to actually then take action on what you see, right? But first, for the clarity, you need to have that flow. Paula says, this is brilliant. I realize I've been moving more into flow these last couple months. I didn't understand the importance of that. Absolutely, Paula. Now the challenge on the other side is if you go too into the flow, right, then things don't get done. And it sounds like that's been happening, and maybe it's just sort of like the pendulum swinging the other way, and it's got to balance out. But I think you have to see, what does it create? It's great to have more flow, but what is it that created the imbalance in the first place, right? That you're going so far to that side. Because if we don't address that, you can do more flow, which is going to be great. You're going to feel like definitely more energized than you did. But if, like you said, if you're not fully fulfilled in what you're doing, or there's other things, other patterns below that need to be addressed, then when things ramp up again, or when you start to ramp up again, you can go back the other direction. So it's an it takes some time with the pendulum swinging one way and the other way to find your rhythm. But those are a couple things that I would definitely look a little bit deeper into for you, Paula, is like really seeing that what needs to shift there. Maggie says, I'm on the go. However, I feel like if I take time, I will not reach my goal in time. So you have to see, Maggie. What do you mean if you take time? If you take time off, or if you're doing the things that help you unwind on a regular basis? I think if you give me a little bit more context there, because you have to see, are the goals the right goals or are they too intense, right? Are you pushing yourself too hard? If you have to be in go mode 24/7, then the goal is too intense, right? Because we're just not designed for that. It's just not workable. Although if you need to do that for a week or a short window, then that might be okay, right? And then you make that as a conscious choice. All right, so we talked about what makes you unwind. The next thing is that rhythm and structure creates freedom. So this is where people, when they go to flow, they go too far into flow sometimes, and then nothing's getting done, right? So instead, we want to go look at your schedule, your calendar, your flow, and go, what's a rhythm that will work to allow you to have the go, but also allow you to have unstructured time, or have time that for things that make you unwind, or for socializing, or for whatever that is. And having a rhythm to your days that allow, into your weeks and your months and your year, that allow for this shifting, this dancing between the two energies, right? This is so important. You don't want to go completely unstructured, because that's going too far to the pendulum swing of the flow. And as we mentioned, not a lot's going to get done over there. It's going to feel nice, right? For a time anyway, but then the lack of results gets frustrating. And, women that are too much in flow and come to me often, they're just not getting, they're not making money, they're not getting results in their business, and it's super frustrating for them as well. So rhythm and structure creates freedom. So really looking at that rhythm, Paula, I love that you used that word already, right? I think it was rhythm. Yeah, you said finding your rhythm is super important. And then the next one is getting support. So this can be delegating. This can be getting support in the sense of like team members. So, hiring someone to help you with certain things if you're at that point in your business. If you're not, getting, people in your life that can support you. And then getting support also in the sense of coaching, if that's something that you need, because just look at what I wanted to say about that. Oh, around focusing on what's most important, because like for me, so much of the being and go all the time is that everything felt equally important. Do any of you relate to that? Like when you're in go mode, it's kind of like you've got this laundry list of things to do, and you're just like, I gotta check everything off the list. And it all feels like life or death. It all feels equally important. But that's where a coach, in my case, that's what really helped me, was having coaches and people that I could check in with as a sounding board and ask them like, hey, here's all these things. What do I need to be focused on? Like, what's most important? And we could dialogue and talk it out, and then see what was really going to move the needle forward, and what could wait, right? Or what could I delegate, or what could wait until later? So that's where, again, for me, it was super important. And then over time, I started to build that muscle myself, right? To really be able to see, it's not life or death. Not everything needs to happen at once. What is actually the most important thing here? And so these are skills that I've had to learn. So you might need a sounding board to help you clarify that. And think about how much time and energy this will save you. Like a lot of times people go, well, I can't afford a coach, or I don't know if that's really what I need. And I go, well, think about, again, the amount of time and energy you waste right now. Again, I'll just speak for myself. So much time and energy wasted trying to just getting spun out in these cycles, until I had that support to really help me find my rhythm and still move my business forward, still be getting results, right? Not just be taking a bunch of time off and not reaping the rewards of that in terms of my business and my finances. Okay, so one more. If you're not full-time in your business yet, I recommend don't quit your day job until your business is really taking off to a point where that's not going to be a huge financial pressure for you, because a lot of times people think, well, that's how I'm going to get more into flow, or that's how I'm going to stop feeling burned out. And again, that is one way of looking at it. We go, if I quit and then I start my business, or I, go full time into my business, then I'll be more in flow. But the truth is, if your business hasn't really started taking off yet, you're going to stop everything. You're going to be in your business, and then you're going to be totally in go mode, because you're like, shoot, I need to make money. How do I survive here? And so instead, I recommend really keep your day job for now and make a transition plan. And again, you want to work with a coach, ideally, if you're working with someone who can support you around the aliveness piece, which is what I did with that client I talked about earlier, where she was totally exhausted, burned out, didn't have energy or excitement. And then over the course of 6 months, we helped her get clear on what she wanted to do as a business, get that business started. She started it on the side. She went out, started getting clients, and she had so much energy and aliveness, more than she ever thought possible, even while she still kept her day job. She's now starting to look at her transition plan, but it's taken some time to get these pieces all in place. So I recommend don't, just quit everything. If she had quit everything and tried to start a business, she would have been under a lot of financial pressure and even more stressed. All right. So that's a really important one. And again, you may need support to help you make that transition plan. That was really important for me. I could not see how to get out of what I was doing when I was in my previous career. And it took having a coach that helped me walk through that and take step by step the next piece, until all of a sudden I got to a point, felt like all of a sudden, but it took some time, where I was able to quit and go full time into what I was doing. So we're pretty much at time here, but I do want to see if you guys have any questions, because you've been so awesome and engaged in the chat. Anything else that you're struggling with around the go mode or the burnout that I haven't touched on today? Go ahead and type it quickly in the chat so I can answer those questions. And then if you don't have a question, go ahead and let me know in the chat, what's your biggest aha from the call today? What's your biggest aha moment? Like, what out of everything I shared really clicked for you that you're like, I'm going to go out and apply that? And then just to say, if you haven't done a clarity call, like Paula, again, I can't remember if we've talked about this. I'm sorry, you guys, it's early here. I'm in California. It's not that early anymore, but I was up super early doing calls. And see, I can't even hold a train of thought. I'm not a morning person. That's the train of thought. So getting up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. this morning was an adventure. So I'd love to hear, like I said, your questions and your ahas in the chat. And I know it takes just a minute. So Paula says, the affirmation of this issue has been wonderful. Good. So just recognizing that this is something, it's normal, right? It's something that happens to many people. And then really seeing like, oh, this is what's going on here, is too much go mode energy. And how do I find that balance? And also the fulfillment piece that we talked about. Maggie, to find a balance between go and flow. Awesome. And again, remember, I keep using the word balance because it's just so ingrained in us in our society, but let's call it a dance between go and flow. Because remember, it's got a very different energy to it. All right. Thank you, everyone. If you're curious about one of those clarity calls, type clarity in the chat. Make sure we're friends on Facebook, that we can have a message conversation about it, or you can direct message me as well. And that's the free coaching session that we do to help you really get clear on that vision of what you want, what you're creating, what you're going for from that more flow place, so that you can then come in and really bring in the healthy level of go mode energy to make it happen. And I think that's it for today. So I'll see you all in a couple of weeks. I am taking off the next couple of weeks, but I will be back on January 30th. And we've got a great topic, which is, I had it up in front of me a moment ago. Just pull it up here. Our topic on January 30th is... tired of social media, 5 tips to grow your warm network. So I love this topic because I hear from a lot of people, they're feeling like, oh, I'm just like done with the social media thing. I want to grow my business, but it's just not working the way I want it to, or it's slow, or it's just not my thing. And so I wanted to talk about different ways, or they say I feel like I've tapped out my warm network in terms of growing my business. And so I'm going to be sharing different ways that you can grow your warm network. So you actually have more really qualified, amazing people in your network, and that can bring in more clients, but it can also bring more opportunities, more friendships, all kinds of things. So if you'd like to attend that, make sure you mark your calendar for January 30th. It's a Monday at 11 a.m. Central Time, US. And we have an ad event link that I send out in all the emails and everything, and I think we put it in the event description. We can actually click one link and it'll add all of our upcoming lives to your calendar. So I highly recommend using that link so that you can be there. And then Maggie, I will reach out to you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye.